Okay, so Kurmi is much like CUCM. You have Kurmi out here, and Kurmi has, they can have multiple customers and all that stuff. In this case, it won't even go through all that stuff, but it has a little database there. So it has its own database. It's much like Unity, where from AD, it syncs up there, you pull it in, and then you have them here, and that's the AD sync. And then there's another little database. This is like the customer, if you want to pull things from this sync user database and pull them over here, you can pull them over here. And this is where you configure phones, and the user actually exists in locally to Kurmi, I guess is the way to say it. So you can, let me restate that. Once you sync them over here and you have them in this database, you can attach a phone to a user in that database, or you can say, I don't want to use that database. I'm going to create a local user, and I'm going to attach a phone to this database, and this is the local database. So it's very much like Call Manager, very much like Unity Connection, where you can do either or. Even though you're doing AD Sync, you can use the users in AD Sync to attach phones and services to, or you can do a local user as well. And so obviously if we have the AD over here and has user 1, user 2, and that's their names, you have to stick by this, right? So if I create a user in Kurmi over here and I want to use the AD Sync to attach a phone to, my only option is user 1 attach his phone to. If I want to make it Jack Sparrow or something like that, I want to make my name more identifiable, my only option is this guy. This is where I can actually create the user and give him my own name and stuff like that. So that's kind of, I think I do it this way, Cheyenne, in Kurmi. So I'm actually creating my own user. Now that what I was trying to...
But from a demo standpoint, though, when we're demonstrating to customers, that's not the experience we want them to familiarize them. We want them to see how you would sync through an AD, right?
Yes, and you can do that. The only thing that kind of got me there when I was telling this to Steve and Derek and Bob Ball, they kind of got confused. So when I was kind of explaining this concept over here, they kind of got confused and said, no, wait a minute, time out. I just want to create a user named Jack Sparrow. And I said, well, that's really not how it happens, really, because you have these users over here. It could be Joe Smith, Mary Jane, whatever, and you have to use what's here. And they said, well, no, it didn't make sense because that's not what they've been doing in their testing, because they're not, they're in the lab. They've been using this Kurmi system. Bob's been using this Kurmi system that is not really reality. So I kind of changed gears and I said, well, okay, if you want to just create Jack Sparrow and Jane Doe and Steve Derrick and or Steve Carter and Derrick, then your only option is this one. Now, if you do that, remember there's numbers already attached to these users, like let's say a DN number 713-1234.
Right.
So what I had to do, and let's see, user 2, 713-1235. What I had to do is I had to assign them numbers. I said, okay, I'm going to go over to user 3, and I'm going to steal his number. Now, user 3 still exists in AD, and the phone attribute is still that number. So I'll give you that number. We'll have to not use user 3 anymore. So I'm kind of wipe them out, so to speak. And then when you create Jack Sparrow, or you got your 2 users to use, these are your 2 numbers. Make sure you pick those 2 numbers. When you create your users and you go to that little
But why are we doing it that way? Why aren't we just doing the AD sync and pulling the user and their phone number in?
Because that's the way they wanted to do it. That's the way Bob and Steve couldn't wrap their mind around that. And they said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pull any users. Sense. Yeah, I know. But
because to me the bottom scenario is because that's not a customer is going to ask what, so I have to type in usernames and passwords and I have to figure out what phone number they have.
That's not only that. Not only that. This whole thing where you pick a number, you know how that cool thing,
right.
That in reality, in the real world, will never be. No one ever will do that, right? Because you order SIP trunking, and the way we usually do things is, I got 1,000 users. Here are my 1,000 users. They're Jane and John, and then we tell the customer what? Okay, well, whose number? You got to put these numbers together. Jane's whose number? John is whose number? And that's already done beforehand.
Right.
There's none of this going into a little wizard and say, oh, I'm going to pick a new number because they already exist. Now, I'm not saying that we could, that's how Office 365, if you go buy calling plan, you buy 3 calling plans and you get 3 numbers, and then the user's already there, and you just go say, oh, Anthony Garcia, I want this, I want this number too. So it's very similar to how Kurmi, so I know their logic. They looked at these other things and said, hey, it's much easier to put a pool of numbers in there, buy a pool of numbers, throw them in there, and then just pick them, as they deploy users. But that's not how we do things. It will be a change of process. We have to rethink how we engage the customer and how we order SIP trunking, and all that. So I don't think not everybody has their mind around this yet.
But this demo script video that you did is not realistic. That's not what a customer is going to experience. And that's what, if everybody memorizes that video and uses that as their demo, it's not accurate.
So that's why we stood Kurmi up standalone so that we could do that. Right? What he's telling you is that we can't do that because we are going to be using the production Kurmi environment, and that's not the process that they use integrating AD into the environment.
We can do it both ways, Cheyenne. If you want to do it this way, the users are there, and you can go in there, and instead of going where I went to create the user, you go into the AD sync. I forget what menu it is, but you say, user 1, I'm going to create this user. And it pulls them over, because they kind of synced over here. It pulls them over, or it kind of attaches the phone to the user right here. And then
right.
You give them whatever. And, of course, their AD telephone number is
right.
correct.
And I just assign them a user package, right, and a MAC address.
Yes. And then the number.
Now, why is it you're saying we don't want to do this? I guess that's where I'm not.
No, that's the way. I mean, when I started it, I wanted to do it that way, and then Bob said, "What? Well, I want to pick a number." I said, "Oh no, you can't pick a number because the numbers are already assigned in AD."
Right.
What? They didn't. No, I don't want to do it that way. I don't understand that. So the demos they've been doing for years, or for a year or so inside Kurmi, they were used to going to that little wizard and pushing that little button and then 10 numbers showing up and then picking one. And they like that. Oh, look how easy it is. I'm going to create a user and look at these 10 numbers. I'll just pick one. So they told me that I don't want to do it that way. That doesn't make any sense. So I said, oh, okay. You can do it this other way.
So they want to provision the users manually instead of doing an AD sync? I mean, that's not how PS is going to do it, right?
Right. You're absolutely right. Right.
That's not how customers would do MACDs.
That's correct. I totally agree with you.
I'm sorry. I'm just okay. It's making sense now, except that now that it makes sense, it doesn't make sense. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can talk to them and say,
Jessica, are you tracking here? Sort of,
kind of. Sorry. Yeah, I am multitasking, but I am tracking enough that we seem to have a disconnect between how we've set it up versus how it's set up in production. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, the little demo that we've kind of been scripted and using for the last year is not reflective of the actual
how it
customer
when
experience.
they actually get the product. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that may be minor. When I was trying to make Bob understand this, I kind of backed off and said, they want to do a demo and they just want to show the interface, and so it's not always going to be the same. Okay, whatever. How do you want to do it? Well, we want to just create Jane Doe, or Jack Sparrow, and we're going to type the name in, and we're going to type their password and all that. Okay, if you want to do that, then we're going to have to do this local way. You're not going to authenticate against AD and all that stuff that we do. So here's the other way to do it. Is it very similar? Yeah, it's similar, except in one way you're pulling the name in to the little page, and the other way you're just creating the name. Very similar, kind of similar.
When Ben was doing the demo, he was getting to that point, and he was typing in the username and password and selecting the phone number. He said but he would caveat it and say, if you had an AD sync in place, you could just pull the user in.
Bingo. And that may be,
and that's fine. But I was confused because I was thinking we do have an AD sync, so why are we doing this? That's the whole reason of my question. I'm like, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
All right. So when we move this to the production, like we've been, working on, will it then go back to how it is, or how it is in real life, or are we still going to have a disconnect for ASH3?
We always have the option. So if we want to do it, it's going to be AD sync. So when we move it to production, we're probably going to do the same thing that we're doing it today, and we're going to AD sync it, right? That's what we're doing right now in ASH3. It's AD synced. You always have the option to create a local user. You always have that option. And for demo purposes, I think what Derek, Steve, and Bob were saying, it just shows better. If I go in there and hey, maybe the customer's name is Jack McGrath, and hey, what's your name? I'm gonna put you right here. Oh, Jack McGrath, and your password's 123. Hey, bring up Jabber on your phone. You can log in, make a PSTN call. I think that's kind of where their head was at. They want to be able to do, do anything. Now, if we get deeper into into the technical demos with customers, we can certainly say, hey, well, yeah, this is kind of the showboating one, but the how you guys are going to work, let me show, and we can do that too. So we can do that right now in ASH3. We can show you either way. You want to see the AD sync way? Okay. You want to do the local user way? We can do that too. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's just the way it shows. How do you want to show it? You want to show it with the most pizzazz, and I think that's where Bob and Steve were kind of going. Pulling a Verizon 100 user, red VL, they said, no, I don't like that.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, that was the only question I have for today. Maybe you can show me how to do the AD sync version of the demo at some point.
Well, let's do that. Maybe next week on this call we do that. We do both ways, and just do something like that, and we can see. Jessica can see as well on how each one is done.
So has anyone heard? I was out for a couple of days last week. Are we making any progress for moving to production? I know there was some initial work, and then I just haven't heard a thing. So. Okay, I'm going to take silence as nobody has heard anything either. So, all right, I'll go chase people. It's fine. So, yeah. We knew it wouldn't be an overnight project anyway.
What else can we talk about right there? Yeah, I guess that's it on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it. Okay, well, I'll get with Antoine this week, and maybe we can shift gears. I know, Jessica, you're on me on the names for the EBC. That's on my list too. I've just kind of.
Yeah, and use really super generic names. Nothing. No superheroes or anything like that. Just plain vanilla.
Like Charles Holland, who's in every Cisco demo known to man.
Yeah.
Anita Perez too.
Yeah.
I knew Anita Perez too in school.
Oh, funny.
Okay, guys. But that's all I got. Unless you have another question we can dive into.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, bye.
Hey, Ansel.
Yeah, I'm here.
You got a minute?
You bet, yeah.
So, I wanted to ask you about the VPN. I started to set up the VPN for a little router that I have, a little 819. I like using those just because they're small, easy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I picked the wrong subnet. So I wanted to ask you, do you care? So what I picked is 10.151.255, which is the dynamic subnet for AnyConnect users, right? It's the VPN address pool.
Yeah.
So can I use 254? Do you want me to stay away from that? Do you want me to use 192? Do you want me to use something else?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. As long I think I had a few in there site to site, and I was at one time I had a little drawing, and I had a subnet, but I don't think it matters. I mean, we got our own little carve up piece. So, yeah.
I know. I just wanted to talk it through with you. That's all, right? Just so you're aware. Just right. I figure maybe the more we talk to each other when I do this stuff, the less challenges that I have and trouble I get into.
Yeah. I have a couple in there already, and I don't know what I forget what because I have a router for like a Cisco Live and DC, because I used to.
Yeah. And then I did set up Andre's shared lines, and believe it or not, I use Kurmi.
Really?
I did. Oh yeah, actually, I got very good at Kurmi. In fact,
man, that's awesome.
Gave me a few tips on how to correct things when the database gets out of sync and what to do, and so it's like, oh, this is actually pretty cool.
Man, you gotta show me that stuff. Gosh. Yeah. I was. Every time they do share, going in call manager and all that stuff, I was like, oh no, hopefully Mike can do this. I was like.
Well, I felt bad too because I saw the note from Jim and I was like, oh shit, Anson told me to be on this call, and here I am. I didn't see the invite, forgot all about it. So I saw his note. I was like, oh crap, am I in trouble?
Hey, Andre is always like that. I mean. It's like every few months, he's got a demo to do tomorrow, and he's want that line on this line. It's always something. He deals with a lot of these small shops, and he sold some stuff. So, we've got to pay attention to him because he goes out there and beats the street and someone says something in a meeting and he immediately says, well, we can show you that. I can bring the phones here and show you that. We can do that. And, that could lend some credibility to us and him. Unfortunately, he says, I can show you that tomorrow.
Yeah, right. And it's not that easy.
Yeah.
So I guess what I wanted to ask about is that, I went into Kurmi, I set it up. I even anyway, so what happened is he's got 8861s, 65s, I think, anyway, so 8800 series phones, 8841s, that's what they are.
Yeah.
And so I set up his first line on the first phone, the second line on the second phone, the third line on the third phone. And then what I did is I went and on each of those 3 phones, set up the other 2 lines. So you see them when they come on, right? So it looks kind of like a key system, but not really. It's just shared user lines.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that on any phone, you can answer any line inbound, but what you can't do is you can't make a call outbound on somebody else's shared line. And so it's bizarre. And when you answer, the shared line instance appears on your primary number. Right? So in other words, you can't select the line. It doesn't ring on that individual line like you would on an old 7900 series phone. Right? I mean, I've done this before. And so it was bizarre. It's very, very bizarre.
So you can't pick a line and do an outbound call is what you're saying?
Yes, correct. Correct. And the other thing that I found is that if all 3 phones weren't registered, the other line, 2 of the other lines, so what happened is that I set up my own environment, right? You and I picked out 3 numbers for me, and it's in the spreadsheet, and so I use those. Rather than screw with Andre's stuff, or I figure I'm going to just use my own. So I set it up. They're on 7841s, because I happen to have 2 of them. I thought, no big deal. It's the same phone, just not color. If the second phone isn't plugged in and I call the second line, you would expect it to ring on that primary phone because that shared line instance is configured. But it doesn't. It rolls straight to voicemail. And then if you call the third number,
well, that's going to be your coverage stuff on that first. It's going to be, well, I don't know, but I can tell you the first thing that entered my head is call ID mask, because it'll overlap. So if you have something on the device that's masking, your call ID, it's something there. You know what I mean? I believe it would be something there to kind of go look at that. And you might have to do a trace and say, when I make this call, or go do call analyzer,
right.
And then go look at what happens and what's the call ID being presented, when it goes to the SIP trunk. So that's what I would.
Yeah, I did it once, and I don't remember what it says. So I'll go back and look at it.
So Kurmi is not magic then.
Well, it's only as good as the underlying data. And that's,
right, yeah.
But yeah, so I got to the point where I could add an individual line. So what was happening is that I deleted the user, like the process that we went through, and it didn't delete the number. And so the number was still attached to the line in Call Manager, and I thought, well, I don't want to go to Call Manager to do that because then my database here is going to get out of sync. So I deleted it.
Remember we were going through it, and I was surprised that it was deleted. Remember I told you, we got to go to Call Manager and delete. And I said, it's not here. Remember I told you that I ran into that. I don't know what it is. If you hold your mouse just weird,
well,
just
so
right, it doesn't delete it over there. But there's something that we're not doing that doesn't delete it. And then you can't create the user. Right, and it gives you some error and says,
Right. Well, you can't create the number. So what I do is I'll create the user with the soft client attributes and leave the hard phone off. And there's no number associated with it. And then in Kurmi, if you go to the line instance, you can go to, you can actually manipulate the individual line. You search for the number, you can delete it, and as part of the delete, there's little options in the pull downs. It says you can say sync Kurmi at time of deletion, and what it does is it goes and deletes it from the Kurmi database, but also deletes from Call Manager, and then resyncs.
Oh, interesting.
So it was a little tip that Antoine pointed out.
Yeah.
So So anyway, he's actually pretty responsive when he wants to be.
Yeah, when he wants to be. When he wants to be. This whole, I'm amazed sometimes that these guys in PS, these big customers that we have, and all the complexity over the years. I mean, Call Manager is like, it's a monster. It's just a monster. I mean, you can shoot yourself in the foot and then be for days trying to figure out what the hell you did. This, Kurmi is just, I hope that it's going to take care of all that and drive this monster, tame this beast. And I think people are kind of, rejecting this whole thing now. It's like Nortel. Remember the Option 11, the 81s, and they got so complex. You had to get the guy, you got to get the hippie in that had been doing it for 30 years to figure out how to do a shared line, somewhere or get. Right. And it just got to the point that everyone just threw their hands up, and this little company called Cisco made this little thing called Celsius, or bought, and it was like, well, I can't do anything with that thing, but I can make a phone ring, and I can make an outbound call, and and that was enough. Like, okay, that's what we want. We don't have to hire the hippie to come in and do this maintenance nightmare, contract. So, that didn't sound good.
I'll let you go.
Okay, man. All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Hanson.
All right, bye-bye.
See you, man.